So I'm back on the main home page and I now want to record time against my timesheet. To go directly to any recent or current timesheets, I can simply click on the period ending date here, or alternately I can click up here and go to employee time and disbursements. Now by default I'm seeing as many employees as I am allowed to see based on the user group and the system settings that the administrator has given me. If I want to add a new timesheet, I can simply click on the plus sign to add a new timesheet. The system administrator has set up Abtrac to say timesheets are to each week ending on a Friday. By default, again, the system administrator has set it up to say these are the columns that I see in the order in which they appear. What I can do is I can simply copy my timesheet from a prior period. So I'll say clone it from the end of March and post it into the 13th of April. So what it's going to do is bring through all the current project data that's not already in my current timesheet. And that saves me rekeying these numbers and these words, job codes, etc. on projects that I'm doing a lot of repeat work on. So all I need to do is simply just say, right, well, I've just done 5 hours there and maybe 3 hours there, etc. I can just go throughout the week and just populate my timesheet like that. If I need to add a new project, I can either pick it from the drop-down list, or if I know what it is, I can simply start typing the number and Abtrac will zero in on it. I'll say I've just done another 2 hours on that particular project there. Now when I click away, Abtrac is trying to auto-save the timesheet. If it doesn't do it, as it hasn't done here, it tells me why, and it's because in this case, this stage is required for this particular project. So you can set rules with Abtrac that apply across the whole of the system, and you can also set rules on a project by project basis, clicking here, right clicking. I can see that because there's a tick in this box here against this particular project, it's requiring that I enter a stage when I enter time against it. So back in my timesheet, associated with that time element that I've just entered, I can do a couple of other things. I can double click and enter a comment. So I might say I drove out to the client site. It's picked up that I've spelt one word incorrectly. I can fix that there and then. Save that comment. Now when I hover over that, it's telling me that comment, and I can also click in here and right click and add a disbursement. So I drove out somewhere. I can say I used my personal car, and the administrator has set it up so that it looks as if I'm getting reimbursed 85 cents per kilometre. I'll just say I did 63 kilometres. I'll save that record. It's let me save it straight away without requiring any comment or anything else. So most people will leave Abtrac open throughout the day. Alternately, of course, you can log in and out from it throughout the day. They'll leave it open, they'll leave it minimised. We have configured the timesheet entry screens so that they will stay open for up to 12 hours, whereas all the other pages within Abtrac, the same as anything else like internet banking or eBay, you'll have to re-credentialise yourself if you're away from that page after a certain period of time. But we've configured the timesheet entry pages so that doesn't happen for up to 12 hours. There are several different views of the timesheet, and if people are using, for example, a stage group, but they're not interested in using work items, you can configure Abtrac so that those columns either show or don't show according to what you want. And another major view of Abtrac is obtained by clicking on here so that they see the dates down the side instead of across the top, and in particular people will use that if they like recording start time, stop times down here. I can also see the comment that I typed in there against that particular work item. So these configuration settings and many more are managed through what we call user control settings. And if I right click and open that in a new tab, you can see here that it's showing the comment field here because that's the width that I've set it to in pixels, and that's the order in which it's appearing. And in fact, just about all the grid pages within Abtrac, so I started off in the search screen about 20 minutes ago. I'm now in my timesheet screens. I've got a couple of major views, and you can see that I can show and hide columns. Giving it a 0 width will hide it, according to what I want it to do within my particular office. When people have done their timesheets to a certain level, they can, if they so wish, put a tick in that box there, and that will say to an administrator, I have completed my timesheet, you can now take it off me. And what does that mean? That means that back in this page here, an administrator can commit these timesheets whether or not they have been deemed ready to commit by the particular employee. They do that by selecting as many timesheets as they wish for a particular period ending, for example, and then simply bulk committing all those timesheets. Once the timesheet is committed, it's analogous to handing an old-fashioned piece of paper through to an administrator. The particular user can no longer edit those timesheets, but of course they can still open them and view them. In the same neighbourhood as entering timesheets, an administrator or anyone else who is allowed can enter office disbursements. They can import disbursement from any other source where you can obtain either a CSV or we have an API connection. You can also process sub-consultant invoices as they are submitted to you, and you can export timesheets and import them into various payroll packages. So timesheet entry is where most people spend most of their time within Abtrac, but in fact it's very quick to learn how to use it once the administrator in particular has set it up. Having entered time, we can now look at some reports, and we'll look at them from 2 or 3 different perspectives. There's a huge array of reports within Abtrac, and one of the big bouquets that we get from many a client who's migrated to Abtrac from another package is that the reports are stunning and give them a lot more information that otherwise they would have to maintain through Excel or some other system. So I've configured Abtrac so that I'm only seeing this finite list of reports. So for example, I'm seeing 3 reports up the top here. If I click on all, then this expands out to show considerably more than 3. You can do that as you'd expect by clicking on favorites. So you can choose your favorite reports. These are my favorite project management reports. These are my favorite month-end invoicing reports, my favorite employee monitoring, etc. If I'm here for purposes of invoicing, I might start down here. I can click on Unbilled Work Quick Summary. People can keep entering their timesheets. Supposing we're into the first few days of May, you'll make sure people have done their timesheets by running perhaps a listing of incomplete timesheets between 2 dates. And then eventually we say, right, I'm sure we've got all the data in the system. We'll look at what people have been doing. You'll see within each report, as I click up and down it, I get different options opening up and down here. So I can choose to look at reports from various perspectives, various filters, charge rate, cost rate, grouping by office, grouping by project manager, whatever I want. For Unbilled Work Quick Summary, I will simply run it for all projects, all clients, all unbilled work. By default, Abtrac shows all unbilled work whether or not the project is still current. So for example, this one here, there's $900 on the tab. You might say this project's no longer current. You have the option to say exclude non-current projects from a particular report, including this one. People might say, well, look, I'll just leave that $900 there because the client's gone away. When they come back, I don't want to forget that we already had $900 there. The particular project, in fact, that I'm working on is this one down here. We can see that that's my initial fee proposal. That's what I previously billed to date. I might want to click on there and go and look at that invoice to see what I said. There's some new time, some new disbursements. That's the total unbilled work in progress that I might want to bill this month. If I want to look further, I can actually leave that report open. I could also have obtained the same report from here, which gives me some drill down options, but since I'm looking at reports, I will choose another one here. I know the project code is 172014. Here it's saying between 2 dates. I'll say no, show me everything that is unbilled. That could be because there might have been some work unbilled from January, February, March, many months prior to the current period. I'd also like to see the invoicing history, and also show it to me by stage. And down the bottom, you also get the option to look at it by charge rate or cost rate, or what we call scaled cost rate. Scaled cost rate is based on employee standard hours. So if an employee is on a salary and they work 60 hours one week, it scales the cost rate back to whatever their standard week should be, for example 40 hours. Clicking now to open this report, it's timesheet entries based on the options as I've chosen them. If I've cloned my timesheets, I don't want any cloned timesheets coming through with a whole lot of zeros on them. Since I've chosen one project, these 2 options are not relevant. This is doing exactly what I asked it to do. It's split it up into the different stages. It's also showing the disbursements as they were entered. Down the bottom it's showing me the invoicing history, and on this basis I can decide whether or not I want to bill that client at all, because I see there's already $320 right on there. If I was to net them off, I wouldn't be charging much. Be that as it may, I'll show you some other reports, and this time I'll base it on a slightly different project that's got a bit more information in it. So for the same client, we have another project. I'll see what that looks like. So I've chosen a different report, colloquially called IPIR. This gives me, on a big project, a stage-by-stage analysis of where we're up to, what's still on the tab, what has been billed, vis-a-vis our quote. It's a significant report, and some people say on bigger projects that they couldn't run their projects without this sort of report. So I can leave all the reports that I'm working on stacked up across the top here. Eventually I'll say, look, I'll close these. I've decided I know what I'm going to invoice the client. I'll go ahead and do it. I'll click on Generate Invoices, and we're presented with this page here. If I know what the project is, I can type it in directly, or alternatively I can pick the client, and then that will filter this list by the projects for that client. I'll choose this top one here. In fact, all of these are showing as having unbilled work against them. I'll just invoice the first one. There's a couple of timesheet lines here. You can see the options through here. I can generate it based on a template of some sort. This is my favorite hourly rate template. This is my favorite progress claim template. Or alternatively, I can base it on last month's invoice for the same client, which a lot of our clients do. They can then simply edit the numbers to produce this month's invoice. At the same time over here I can copy units and rates or copy rates only. So some options here that are covered within the help videos that we have associated with Abtrac, and of course they're also covered in our knowledge base and in any training that we give. I've selected the client. I've said yes, those are the numbers that I've seen on one of those reports that I've previously run. I'll generate the invoice. So the first thing Abtrac does is generate the header and footer of the invoice, bringing through information in as much as it has been entered. If there's anything missing here, I can go back and change it. So if I've spelt something wrong or missed it out altogether, I can say, look, fix it up here, push it back, so next time I'm invoicing that client, the relevant details will come through. When I click on this little grey bar, the top will shrink up and show me the unbilled items and the invoice lines. At this stage I have none. What I'm going to do for this client is I will generate it automatically, because that's the format in which we produce invoices for this particular client. So one can, within Abtrac, click on here, add an invoice line or a paragraph of different types and build up the invoice line by line. But to make life a lot easier, we've got some very generic options here that people will usually use to produce the invoices as they need them. So I've chosen Show Me a Progress Claim Invoice. I'll click on here. It's pulled everything out from the unbilled pot, because the time and disbursements in the unbilled items list, those dates and times were all prior to the invoice date. The invoice now looks like this. Above this line and below that line we have a report designer, which about half of our clients will really enjoy themselves and lay up the invoice with their own logo, etc., the way they want. The other half of them will say, we're very time poor, can you do it for us? And of course we will. Within the midsection, these are system settings that your administrator would set up, or alternatively we can do it in a telephone support session. What it's done, it's pulled through all the different stages in as much as they've been set up for this project, and it's now leaving me to decide what we want to invoice each month. So coming back into the invoice, on the very first line we have concept development. It tells me that I previously invoiced $2,184, and I'll say this month we're up to 100%, and Abtrac works out the maths for me. Within Abtrac also you can see all these different settings here. When people go ahead with Abtrac, one of the options we offer them is that we will do training for them. The benefit is on the day they have to produce a whole lot of month-end invoices, they know exactly how to do it. Saving that line now, you can also see that even though there was only $630 worth of fees initially in the unbilled pot, we're now billing the client $63,000 for that particular activity. Obviously these numbers are just for demonstration purposes. All the invoices that you're working on sit around in an unchecked or uncommitted state. And what I can do is I can load them and play with them, and people will typically do that because they say we're waiting for a creditor invoice to come in against this one. We need to know how to adjust it. We're waiting for something else on here, maybe a director's approval or whatever, but eventually people will go tick, tick, tick down here and they can commit to those invoices. And once they are committed, they can then be uploaded into most standard accounting packages. So the commit process commits the invoice and it can then be uploaded. From here also, again, I can go tick, 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 and I can email out the invoices. If there is an email recipient address in here, I can PDF them, I can hard copy print them if I want to. Once the invoices are ready to be uploaded, they can be uploaded here by creating a batch of invoices. They don't automatically sync with the accounting system for reasons, as I've articulated already, that a lot of people will generate an invoice and leave it around for some reason or other until eventually they say it's good to go. In terms of invoice layout, you're welcome to look at our website, abtrac.com. Within it we have a gallery of invoices giving some examples of what an Abtrac invoice can look like. Throughout the middle of the invoice you can see the different layouts that our clients use. And of course you can have a smorgasbord of invoices, so you might say I want to show all variations in an hourly rate format underneath a progress claim invoice. Because you've got the scope of the project in Abtrac, you're putting time and disbursements in Abtrac, and you're invoicing out of Abtrac, you can get additional reports such as this one here. So between two particular dates, show me each employee and then the project. So it's showing me for each of the employees here, the projects that they've worked on, the hours that they've spent, and if I follow one of these lines through, for example, if I take this one here, I can say this particular employee has spent 55 hours on the project, and had they billed it at their normal rate, they would have recovered 8250. At this stage, we've only invoiced out 18 of those hours, and had we billed that at the normal rate, we would have recovered 2700. But in fact, for whatever reason, we wrote the invoice amount down, and this employee's component of that invoice amount was 262625. So we wrote off against this employee $73. At this stage I won't panic because there's still significant hours unbilled, so the employee margin will come up. But there are a multiplicity of reports within Abtrac, each of them giving different people different information according to what they want. If I come back to this fees and costs report, any report that you can see on the screen you can of course export out as PDF, Excel, RTF. That concludes a quick run through of Abtrac without going into anything in too much detail. For people using AccountWriter Live, I will address that specifically here now. Within the invoice settings, before you start invoicing, you can enter all this detail, but at some stage you decide I want to start uploading invoices from Abtrac directly into MyOb without having to rekey them or muck around with CSVs or anything else like that. So what I can do is I can come into here. You set up all of these details on a one-off basis. This is syncing it to MyOb. I can get these options here, add the client, upload invoice line details, whatever I want. Down here I need to set up a couple of tax codes, GST inclusive and exclusive, and down here I can set up as many different GL account codes as I want as well. So that as I start generating invoices, the default GL account code or any other GL account codes will become available to me, and they are obviously necessary when I upload invoices to MyOb. If I do upload invoices to MyOb, having set up that, I can filter them by a particular office or by a particular whatever. I've already said how to match them when they hit MyOb, and I simply click on an upload arrow. It allows me to credentialize myself with MyOb. The invoices will be pushed in as if I had keyed them directly into MyOb itself. So they're posted through as revenue and through to the debtors ledger. If there's an issue, so for example, just pretend this particular invoice has an invalid GL account code for whatever reason, or one missing for whatever reason, when you try and upload this particular invoice, you'll get a message back saying didn't upload, and the reason is whatever it is. Once the invoices are uploaded into MyOb, you may want to change them at some stage, and perhaps we'll cover those in greater detail in another video. That concludes this video altogether. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any more questions or queries, we're always available through www.abtrac.com, or alternatively you can phone us from Australia at 1800 218 434, or within New Zealand 0800 422 8722. Thanks for listening.